You did a brilliant analysis of the new Mercedes. Thank you so much for that and your insight on that. But just as we posted that, you said, looks like Ferrari got the same hole in the diffuser. Is that right? Are we still thinking along those lines?
Yes, the slotted diffuser, or the hole in the diffuser, as a lot of people are calling it, has been adopted by a number of teams. Red Bull as well. We've got not so much a hole, but a whole chunk of the side of the diffuser missing. Ferrari, as I said, have done very similar to Mercedes, and I'm sure lots of other teams have got it in the pipeline at some stage as well. I've gone back and had a look at the regulations and checked with some people that understand how the regulations now work in terms of the CAD surfaces that have to be applied. And yeah, it's entirely legal. There's some performance in it. It's not, I don't think it's one of the things that you must have in the sport, but certainly opening up the side of the diffuser just inside the rear wheels is a way of putting some high energy air back into the diffuser to keep all of that airflow moving through it. Helps the expansion, gives you more downforce. We've seen teams such as Ferrari and Mercedes that have got these obviously undercut side pods that redirect air through to this slot, but we've seen a number of other teams that have got maybe more conventional side pods that seem to still be using this solution. So I think it's just going to be one of those things that teams will either adopt or maybe even discard as the season goes through, because the development rate at this stage of the season is going to be massive. And again, everything we talk about today, there's that usual caveat is that these are testing cars. They will change before Melbourne. They'll change during the Bahrain test that we've got coming up in a couple of weeks. So all we can really do is just analyze what's put in front of us. And, you know, when things change, then we'll have to have chats about that as well.
Scarbs, what's your feeling in general about the Ferrari? Can Ferrari fans feel optimistic? Is it too early to say? I mean, how do you see the car overall, SF-26?
It's so hard with Ferrari, isn't it? You know, I think we've jumped on a Ferrari bandwagon many times pre-season. Looking at the car, I would say that they've been surprisingly aggressive for what they've been describing as a Spec A car that's going to change a lot in the run up to the first few races. So, but you know, Ferrari have got this diffuser slot. They've changed their front suspension to copy very much what McLaren were running last year with the multi-link lower arms, which will have a huge benefit in grip and tyre performance. Mercedes, we think, and probably Red Bull, probably most of the top teams have got this multi-link lower wishbone set up now. McLaren, it went almost unspoken about last year. With Ferrari, I think you can look at the car and go, well, the car's looking great. You can say that the power unit seems to be performing on track. Nothing but positive noises coming out of that. So, what have we got to temper that with? Because I think we've got to be balanced. Ferrari or Ferrari, this year it's about the power unit. It's about aerodynamics. It's also a lot about tyre management and the drivers getting that critical feel with these tyres. And if we just cast our mind back to last year, at the start of the year, Lando Norris wasn't getting on with McLaren. Oscar Piastri was. They made some changes to the front suspension, which again went kind of spoken about, but never really analysed in most of the mainstream media. And then next minute, Lando's got a handle on the car and Oscar didn't. Now, I believe that's actually to do with this steering angle that's set up by this multi-link lower suspension arm, or wishbone, if you'd like to call it that, just for simplicity. The danger Ferrari have got is that they fall into the same trap as McLaren did last year, and that the suspension system works in theory, but if it doesn't gel with one or both of the drivers, then you're going to have problems. And we know that both drivers struggled with the feel of that car last year. So, yeah, I think Ferrari are looking good. There's nothing there that's a red flag that joking aside, that suggests to me that they'll have anything other than a good year. Whether it's a championship year or a dominant year, it's hard to say. But certainly all the omens at the moment are looking relatively good. But, we just need to keep an eye on it particularly as we get into the last stage of the Bahrain test. And I think for all of the teams, that's the litmus test. But again, even having said that, it's a long, long season this year. Teams that are struggling at the early part of the year have got plenty of time to develop. Ferrari have got quite a bit of aero development time in hand over their rivals who have finished above them in the Constructors' Championship last year. So again, that's a potential advantage that Ferrari has that other teams don't, even if they don't get out the blocks particularly quickly at the start of the year.
Scarbs, any feel on power unit, Ferrari power unit? where they're at?
Again, everything that's been said is good. Of course, everything that's been said has been said by Ferrari and their customer teams that have run it. But the engine has been running lots of mileage. There's been no stoppages that I'm aware of. And yeah, I mean, we can't even think about times yet. But there, again, nothing's worrying us about this Ferrari engine. And that's as good as we can say about anyone at the moment when you look at maybe some of the other manufacturers that have struggled in these first few days of the shakedown.
But in general, reliability, touch wood's been pretty good, isn't it? I mean, if we go back to
Absolutely.
2014, for example, I mean, in terms of the first run, power units in general, the whole battery electric thing, relatively trouble free across the
Yeah, I
board.
mean, I think teams have learnt a lot from 2014 and indeed sort of 2009 going back to the previous big regulation change, and the teams are able to do much more complex stuff, not just with the power unit on the dyno or indeed the entire powertrain on the dyno, but they have these virtual test tracks, and I'm sure we'll talk about those when we come to Williams, where they can put the chassis complete, everything that would be on that car running on a full car dyno with the suspension and the brakes and the aero forces as well as the powertrain running. So the teams have been so much better prepared. And while I think I am somewhat surprised that the majority of manufacturers have had a really clean start to the season. Yeah, it just goes to show how professional Formula One is now when they're coming to getting these things ready.
This one is Luke the Truth says, what do you think? Are Ferrari getting superpower from steel cylinder heads? But is the compromise going to be aero because of a higher center of gravity?
There's a rumor going around that Ferrari are running steel cylinder heads. Everyone I've spoken to kind of scratches their heads and goes, why would you do that? I don't know if it's true or not. So, for argument's sake, let's say that they are running steel cylinder heads, which would probably be for some kind of thermal advantage. I don't think they're going to get massive amounts of power from doing that. So, why else would they switch to steel cylinder heads? One of the reasons would be very similar to what I said with the Ford Red Bull setup. It could be that with steel you don't have such big bulky shapes and structures because steel is stronger than aluminium. So maybe that works well for them. Maybe that's something they're trying to gain an advantage from. In terms of a weight and a center of gravity height problem, doesn't exist, doesn't matter, because Formula One, the little V6 engine is 130 kilograms, which is a massive amount of weight for a tiny V6 engine. So there's more than enough spare weight in the regulations for you to have, you know, you could have a lead cylinder head if you wanted, I would imagine. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but the weight isn't a massive problem. Center of gravity height is specified within the regulations. So as long as you can meet what is actually a very high center of gravity height, we're unnecessarily high in my opinion, and don't even get me started on those other similar regulations for the engine. Yeah, I'm struggling to see where the advantage for Ferrari is, and I'm struggling to kind of pick up some of the rather bold claims some people have had about it in the media over the winter about the advantage of it. I think there's other factors that are much bigger in the performance of the power unit this year. Um, Bigger factors even in the performance of the cars overall. As I say, you've got tires, you've got energy management, aerodynamics, and engine power, engine torque, all that sort of stuff. It's a much bigger melting pot this year. And again, I think this is a story that kind of got a bit overblown in trying to match the compression ratio story that was also going around.